So, you've got the 2026 Winter Olympics in Milan, supposed to be all about global unity and athletic achievement, right? Well, right now, it's actually the center of this huge international firestorm. And it's all because of just three little letters, ICE.
And listen to this. These are some pretty intense words coming straight from Milan's own mayor, Giuseppe Sala. He is not holding back at all, is he? Calling a U.S. agency a militia that kills. I mean, wow, this is not your average political spat. This is a flat-out rejection, and it's blowing up right as the whole world is supposed to be getting excited about the games in Italy.
So, you've got to be asking yourself, what in the world is going on? How does a U.S. federal agency end up casting this huge shadow over the Winter Games? It's a big question, and we're going to unpack it right now.
Okay, so let's start with what's happening on the ground in Milan. We're talking about a huge public outcry, a lot of official concern, and it goes from the streets all the way up to the Olympic Committee itself.
Yeah, the reaction in the city was fast and loud. You had hundreds of people out protesting in Piazza 25 Aprile. And get this, that square is actually named for Italy's liberation from fascism. So the symbolism there is pretty powerful. People were chanting, carrying signs. One of the popular ones was pretty clever. It said ice only in spritz. But others were way more intense, comparing the agency directly to the Gestapo. So, how are the Olympic officials taking all this? Well, they're not happy. The president of the International Olympic Committee, Kirsty Coventry, basically said, anything that is distracting from these games is sad. You can just feel the frustration, right? For them, this whole political mess is just a massive distraction from what really matters, the athletes and the competition.
All right, so moving on to the official explanation. With all the protests and the media frenzy, the governments had to say something. So let's look at what they're actually saying.
Okay, so in response to all this backlash, the U.S. and Italian authorities put out a formal clarification. They were basically in damage control mode, trying to explain what these agents were really there for.
And here's the official story. The U.S. and Italian governments say the agent's role is strictly supportive. That means they have absolutely no policing powers on Italian soil. They're not patrolling the streets of Milan. In fact, they're supposed to be confined to a joint operations room at the U.S. consulate, just helping out with security for American dignitaries. And they're quick to point out this is totally standard procedure. They've done this for past Olympic Games.
So, if this is all so routine and their role is so limited, why the massive public outcry? Well, this is where it gets really interesting. To get to the bottom of it, you have to understand that ICE isn't a monolith. The name itself is the real problem here.
Okay, so officially, U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement, or ICE, is the main investigative agency of the Department of Homeland Security. Sounds simple enough, right? But that definition is hiding the key to this whole controversy.
And here it is. This is the crucial point. ICE isn't just one thing. It's really an umbrella for different divisions that have very, very different jobs. And that one little detail, well, it changes everything.
Think of it like this. There are two faces of ICE. First, you have ERO, which stands for Enforcement and Removal Operations. This is the division that's at the center of all the controversy. They're the ones who handle civil immigration, arrests, deportations. Then you have HSI, or Homeland Security Investigations. Their job is completely different. They're focused on big, transnational criminal investigations, stuff like human trafficking or financial fraud. And here's the twist. The ERO agents, the ones everyone is protesting, they are not in Milan. The agents who are there are from HSI. So, there you have it. That's the reality. But this is a classic case of symbolism versus reality. We have the facts, but the protests are still going strong. So, why aren't the facts enough? Let's dig into that.
This quote from a protester in Milan really says it all. Even if it's not the same ones, we don't want them here. It's their ideas that bother us. See? For a lot of people, the distinction between HSI and ERO, it just doesn't matter. The technical details are getting completely lost.
And what's happening here is that for its critics, the ICE brand itself has become this incredibly powerful symbol. It's so tied to controversial U.S. immigration policy that the actual reality of who the agents are and what they're doing, it just gets drowned out. The brand is more powerful than the facts on the ground.
So why does any of this matter? Well, it's a fascinating look at how a brand's reputation can totally overshadow the facts. It really highlights how tricky international cooperation is in today's polarized climate, and it seriously puts the whole Olympic ideal, the idea of rising above politics, to the test. At the end of the day, that critical distinction between ERO and HSI is just completely lost in the public debate. Which brings us to the big, final question, right? In a world that's so full of powerful symbols and deep divisions, can the Olympic spirit still win? When perception really is reality for so many people, what does that mean for events that are supposed to unite us? It's definitely something to think about.